a core part of his work on the will to power and this sort of intrinsic sort of force, within, or matter. I'm going to say matter, but I mean, like, what, like, can his views be squared with panpsychism? How do you think we should think about his philosophy?
Well, the funny thing is, I got into panpsychism through Nietzsche, right? So, the will to power is an old thing in philosophy. It's like, I mean, it was essentially, I suppose, initially inspired by Schopenhauer's will to live, will to survive, the survival instinct. But also, like in philosophy, we see it in Spinoza, called the conatus. It's what do you say? To persevere in one's own being. So to survive, but also to develop. You get that in Spinoza. Leibniz, a dominant monad, and so on. There's basically a way of individuating beings is to say that there's a kind of fundamental drive that they have. Nietzsche called it will to power, which was quite German militaristic way of looking at it, Wille zum Macht, but really it just means a desire to develop, right? So that survival is the lowest level of that. You can't develop your power if you're not alive. So then the will to survive is sublated into the will to power. So once you've survived, though, the drive continues to develop. That could just mean simply, getting a degree, getting a job, house, whatever, or it can mean more than that. It doesn't necessarily mean greed. It also includes growth, and so on, creativity. But for Nietzsche, there's different readings of the will to power, but I take the reading looking at his notebooks. So it's my view that he was developing this theory into a metaphysical theory, even though he was ostensibly anti-metaphysician, anti-metaphysical. But this was a metaphysics because it was something that underlied the physical, and not that metaphysics means beyond physicality. Of course, it doesn't. It's based on Aristotle's book Metaphysics, but is a kind of view that underlying all of physicality, there is a drive to develop, and that is kind of panpsychism, because it's a psychological drive, it's a feeling, it's a pathos. He calls that pathos. So so that sort of, I was intrigued by that, and then after Nietzsche, I read Schopenhauer, who influenced him, and he's almost Karl Popper called Schopenhauer a Kantian turned panpsychist. And then I sort of started investigating it and his inspirations through Spinoza and so on, Leibniz, and Kant did entertain the idea of panpsychism, but rejected it in the third critique. Anyway, so I think that the will to power can be seen as a type of panpsychism, if you define panpsychism as not simply like consciousness or like access consciousness, but including subconscious drives as well. And if you understand the will to power in the way that I just put it, which he does put it, which is more in his notebooks than his published work, so there's questions about that. But ultimately, where he put it doesn't matter. The important thing is the truth of it, truth of the matter. Right? So that's I do think you can see Nietzsche as a panpsychist of sorts.